Member Yates? Member Warehane?
Here.
Member Sandifer?
Here.
Member Geik?
Here.
Vice Chair Shaw?
Here.
Chair Olmsted Bowen?
Here.
Thank you, all present.
Thank you. So, Tara, you have to push.
Yeah, so let me set the stage in terms of what we are going to do this evening and what is coming up next on your agenda at the next meeting. So the first thing I want to make provide a couple of comments regarding our revenue projection in light of the Zoom meeting that was hosted yesterday by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to turn it over to the finance director. She's going to walk us through our first actual budget to actual report for the Measure R fund. Following that, we'll continue our discussion with respect to the status on the projects that have already been approved by the committee, as well as next year's budget. We hope to conclude our presentation to you this evening regarding the budget for Measure R for next year. And at your next City Council meeting, we will be bringing back the actual budget to you for approval. And then after you approve it, of course, it goes to the City Council for final approval. So that's going to be what we're going to do this evening. In terms of some comments regarding our revenue projection, last meeting we brought to you adjustments regarding our revenue projections based on what we knew at that particular time. And those adjustments were recommended in the form of a mid-year budget adjustment, which has been approved. Yesterday, the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration held a conference meeting with League of California City staff to discuss what they are seeing with respect to sales tax and transactions and use tax relative to COVID-19 and how it's impacting it. So the numbers we included at our Measure R budget adjustments last meeting, those we are still going to leave alone, and those were based on information that we had at that particular time in consultation with our sales tax consultant, HDL, and we recommended those adjustments. But based on the meeting that was had yesterday, it appears that those numbers will still change. And I think I may have mentioned this to you last month. So there were three things that were generally impacting sales tax as well as transactions use tax revenues. Number one, of course, is the economic impact coming from the slowdown and how that is impacting sales tax revenue. The other two pieces deal with a couple of provisions based on governor's executive order. And there were two items that the governor did in response to COVID-19. Number one is for those businesses that generate less than $1 million in sales tax. It granted them a 90-day extension to file their sales tax. So those sales tax for the quarter that ended March 31st, which would have been due for filing a month from that, which would have been like April 24th, okay, he granted them a 90-day extension to file those taxes, which will take it then to April, May, June, July, July 24th, because this returns are generally due on the 24th, a month after the close of the month. And of course, that means the cities will typically receive those taxes revenues a month after it's received by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. What they told us that they are saying is that actually the number of businesses that are taking advantage of that at least doesn't appear to be as high as what they thought it was going to be. So the estimates that we provided, although that doesn't reduce our sales tax, it just defers the time that the revenue is recognized. And for that pertains to the extension, those revenues we would have gotten, say, by the month of May, we wouldn't get them until August. Essentially, that's what that means. So, but in any case, they are saying that that is not going to have as severe, as much of an impact as they thought it was going to have. The other thing that the governor did also was for those businesses that generate sales tax, taxable transactions that are less than $5 million, they were allowed the opportunity to defer up to $50,000 worth of sales tax, and instead of paying it the time it was due, they will pay it over a 12-month period on an installment basis. And again, that was supposed to have some impact on our sales tax revenue for this fiscal year. The information we got yesterday from the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration is, again, not a lot of businesses are taking advantage of that. So the impact is going to be actually lower than what they thought it was going to be. So combined, even the economic impact, although they don't know for a fact, the first full month impact is going to be reflected on the sales tax revenues we receive tomorrow, the 25th. But based on what they have seen, is not as bad as what we are thinking is going to be. So we keep our fingers crossed on this, and what that means is essentially there is a potential that we will actually bring the current projection numbers up, but we'll see how that goes in the next couple of months. But that's just FYI. Any questions on that? No? Okay.
Can't see because my glasses are foggy. I'm sorry. Approval of the minutes of the May 27th, 2020 meeting. Can I have a motion or any discussion? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Can I have a second?
Member Yates? Okay. Member Warehane? Aye. Member Sandifer? Aye. Member Geik? Aye. Vice Chair Shull? Aye. Susan? Oh, sorry. Just read your name. Chair Olmsted Bowen?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous.
Okay, so now we're going to move to the discussion items. The order of discussions is first a staff report presentation, committee questions of staff related to the item presented. The chair will call for public comments related to the item presented. The Ralph M. Brown Act limits the committee's ability to respond to comments on non-agendized matters at the time such comments are made. The committee shall not discuss or take action relative to any general public comment. And fourth, the committee's final discussion and action related to the item presented. So our first discussion item is the Measure R fiscal year 19-20 third quarter budget to actual report.
Hello, good evening, Chair and committee members. I'm here to present to you guys the fiscal year 1920, the Measure R Budget to Actual report. This is as of May 31st, 2020, the last full month that we have incurred. This report through May 31st, we have our revenues at $4,069,575, and our total expenditures as of May of $907,633. Total revenues, like Andy was saying, are anticipated to come in below the original budget because of the projected decrease in transactions. You do have an Exhibit A in your packet that gives a little summary by the projects. Sorry. Yeah. Would you like me to continue? Okay. So as I was saying, as of May 31st, our revenues that have come in is $4,069,575, and our expenditures as of May 31st are $907,633. The revenues, like Andy was saying, have come in below original budget because of the projected decrease in transactions and use tax due to COVID-19. The expenditures at the end of the fiscal year are also expected to come in lower due to the significant amount of time required to design and execute those capital projects as well. Most of the projects listed here are not expected to be completed by the end of this fiscal year and will be carried forward to fiscal year 2021. The budget appropriations for these projects, which are not completed, we will carry them over. So we are recommending that we are recommending that Measure R committee receive and file the 2019-20 Measure R Budget to Actual report. And if you have any questions.
Yes, I'm looking at this, and it says our investment earnings are higher. So why is it negative on the right-hand side? Oh, budget remaining. Oh, I see. Okay. So it's not a variance, it's a budget remaining. Sorry.
Yeah, at the end of March, they were significantly lower, and they have gone up a little.
So, okay, so we're expecting 500,000 approximately less in sales tax revenue than we originally thought, correct?
That's correct, although as I stated earlier, those numbers are subject to additional revisions. And
Right.
I'm hopeful that the revisions will be upward, not lowering the numbers.
Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to receive and file the report.
You're making motion.
I'll make the motion. To receive and file.
Member Yates? Member Warehane? Member Sandifer? Member Geik? Vice Chair Scholl? Chair Olmsted Bowen? Motion passes unanimous.
And action item B, 2B, is continued presentation of the fiscal 1920 Measure Our Products project status update and fiscal year 2021 Measure Our budget. So this is Andy and
All right, good evening. So this is meant to be a continuation of an update regarding the existing projects that we have in place, plus a discussion for the new projects that we would like you to consider. My understanding is that this is not expected to approve these projects tonight. We'll come back again after you had a chance to review them after the discussion and consider them, and we'll bring it back at the next meeting for an approval from this commission to then take it to council sometime in August. So this is just for discussion only purposes for tonight. So with that, we'll talk about the current project. So again, the trail rehabilitation project, that's currently in place. We're about 70%. The original allocation for Measure R was $500,000. We expended about $304,000 to date. We're projected to carry over about $196,000 at this point. We are going to be requesting an additional $50,000 in Measure R to the overall Measure R budget of to push it to $550,000 to cover the cost for the city purchasing the DG. Because if you recall, the agreement we had with the contractor was that we are going to purchase DG to have the savings and control. And right now, basically, at this point, the amount of DG, we don't anticipate it's going to exceed in total for the whole project of $50,000. So we've been using the Measure R funds to pay for the DG. This basically just will put back money into that fund to cover and make sure there's enough money to complete the entire contract. But that's right now is our estimates as far as what we need is an additional $50,000 added to the overall project. Trail fence replacement project, that's 100% done. As you may recall, we asked for $100,000 from Measure R to also be combined with the $150,000 that we got and had in place for the trail fund. So total $250,000 was the total budget. These were the actual locations that we completed with all the funds that were available. So we got quite a few locations done, more than we anticipated, which is great. The more we get done, the better it looks. So all of these locations got completed in this current fiscal year. Traffic calming measures. So that was another project we brought to you late this fiscal year. We had asked for $350,000 Measure R funding to put in basically 20 new speed feedback signs and 20 illuminated stop signs or directional signs in various locations of the city, basically as a test project to find out if putting more in, because originally I thought was to put 40 in of each all around the city to try to help augment our current public safety measures, since again we can only have so many, we only have 2 officers out there now to promote and do traffic control and write tickets. This was at least something, even though it's a passive measure, it's a reminder to folks to, hey, slow down, you're in a 25-mile-an-hour zone or other areas. Hey, there's a curve coming up, you don't need to go 60 around at 25 or 15. So we put these out there. As of today, that's now 100%. We're complete. When we prepared this, we're at 90%. We're done with the project. We're just doing the final checks on all the locations so we can accept them, but everything's been installed and is functioning. We have already determined one sign failed. It's flashing, but the data, and part of this program that we purchased, it actually gives us data on a website that we can track all of this information, and we can provide this information to sheriff, and they have direct access so they can see how's the signs working, what's the hot spots, what's the time of day we're getting the most travelers and the most speeders, et cetera. So it's a really good tool. I plan to bring back the next meeting we have to actually show it to you, and so you can see the program that we get and how detailed it is. So, but basically that's one that the contractor right now is redoing, and that should be finished on Thursday. So they're just going to bring a whole new sign. So our total expenditure is $267,000 for the project, and that includes also the striping that we did to augment the roads. We did center line striping in many areas, especially up in the hills, to help promote a narrowing of the roadway by defining the lanes rather than having no striping and everybody drives down the middle. So that's been positive. The sheriff has said they really liked seeing that there. And so that project is basically done, and nothing's planned to be carried over into the next fiscal year. Yes.
So have you had many calls complaining about these?
No, I've had one call, mainly about as part of these, you have flashing lights. I had one person call saying that it startled them. They weren't expecting it, and they do have issues with light sensitivity. And when they called, it was on the default setting, which was rapid flashing. And we changed it so it was on just flashing once on because basically the way these work is you can have two different settings so when they get over the speed limit, it will flash briefly, the blue and red, but then it just says slow down. But initially gets your attention like, hey, there's something here, and it just meshes to slow down. When you get 10 miles over the speed limit, then it says it flashes really quick, one each color, and then it says driving too fast. So it has, so it gives alternating messages based off the speed that you're going. And so we think we've resolved that issue where the flashing at least gets their attention, but it's not a constant thing where they start focusing on that and maybe, having issues. They were basically explaining, educating me that folks with light sensitivity, we can, it's kind of like epilepsy, but it's same thing that they start to get nauseous and sick. And so if you could change the settings, and fortunately the software has all kinds of settings as far as how you want to change that flashing rate. So I since then, and I have that person's information, they said they'd call me if they had any issues or if they rechanged the settings, gave me issues, and I've not heard from them since. But other than that I've only gotten one concern about it. I've not gotten any comments in the positive either. So, but I think they've been very positive, and we're certainly going to evaluate them. We already have a few signs that we want to move already because the data is clearly telling us there's not a traffic issue there. But that's the point of this, is that we can easily move these to different locations and put them where they will do the most benefit. We never expected this to be perfect, and the data helps us justify why they should be there and maybe why they should be moved. So we're going to go through that process, and the data helps us out. So it's going to be a process to where we fine-tune where these things need to be.
Have you seen any any change to the trends yet? Like, is it having any impact yet, or when do you expect to? When you had presented this, there was like a period of time that adjustment. And
we
after
haven't.
a while, people get numb. So.
Yeah, and we haven't looked at the data. Like I said, maybe we're trying to just get it online, make sure everything's staying online, because we had problems in the issue where the data, because it's cellular based, so sometimes these signs fall out and they don't show on the computer screen anymore, but they still have the data. And when they come back, it backfills everything and it shows up. So we're kind of, again, working out all the bugs. We're just, and the immediate thing we saw was, wow, there's a lot of people speeding on these areas, and some others was like, yeah, there's nobody speeding on this area. And it's mainly because we probably put it in the wrong spot. And it really should have been 200 feet farther down where people can get more speed, because we put it too close to where a stop sign was. So they haven't started their speeding yet. So it's just some, for me, I believe, silly mistakes and not adequately looking at the area and understanding where the true problem were. But they're minor fixes as far as relocating them. So, but we have not looked at the trends to find out, has it improved, has it not improved? We haven't gotten that analysis yet. We're maybe just trying to get it online, and then we'll look at it and say, okay, now that we have a consistent time frame, do we see any trend of people speeding less? and how do we document that and show that, and then track it and then be able to say, hey, here, we're seeing they're trending back up. We need the officers to go back to that area. They need a friendly reminder this is serious. And again, that's why we want to make sure the sheriff is involved and is using this software and the data has it at their ability to use, just so they can kind of pick and choose where they might want to highlight that day.
What is the actual number of these signs that are placed throughout the city?
We placed 20 feedback signs, the speed signs,
20.
and then 20 stop signs and winding curve signs. Most of them were stop signs. We did probably 4 directional signs, we call them, whether it's a left turn coming or right turn coming or wavy road. So I think there was 4 we put out there, but most of them were stop signs. And again, this was meant to be a kind of round 1. So if this turns out to be positive over the next year, we would come back and demonstrate and document that information and see if it's a desire of the Measure R and the council to do more. One thing we want to avoid is doing too much sign pollution, because it becomes everywhere. Everybody wants it. We can't put it everywhere, but we have a decent sized city and we put 20 out there, and I honestly don't feel it's overkill. There's a lot of places I could put more. So, but again, I think it was wise to put it in as a phase and see how it works. We just need to tweak some certain areas and move them around so that we get an optimal use out of them. 6th Street Trail Fence project that recently just started. Again, by the time I wrote this last week to now, they've gotten quite a bit done. They almost have half of 6th Street done. So we're almost, I would say we're probably more at 35% to 40% done. Obviously, expenditures-wise, I haven't expended anything yet because they haven't billed me. So we plan to carry over $254,000, which is basically the bid amount plus 10%. So that's our new number going into the next year, but because that's already been awarded. So I expect that project to be finished probably in no later than mid-July, and everything should be done. Value Rehabilitation, this is one we talked about before. This is a project that we're carrying over. The design's been completed, but now we're just waiting on the storm drain to get designed to get done so I can put it out to bid. Then once the storm drain's in on this section, then we'll do the road. So my goal and hope is to get both those, the storm drain and the road, done in this next fiscal year. Who wants it, Todd or Michelle? All right.
Good evening, Chair and committee members. First on the docket here this evening is the City Hall Sheriff Station improvements. This is a 2-phase project. The first phase being the successor agency. Pardon my redundancy from previous meetings. I'll try and not be too redundant. But we're at approximately 75% installation complete on phase 1. We've incurred about $21,000 the initial phase 1 cost. That includes the wiring and the cameras inside of City Hall and also the card readers for the doors. Phase 2 is the Measure R portion. We have the RFP for the design is complete, and this portion of the project has been awarded to the GMID. It's an architectural firm. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Sorry about that. So in the second portion covers the counter intrusion at the front counters of City Hall, and also over on the division and the Parks and Rec side. Let's see here. So they've been hired. Yeah, so we're preparing drawings and looking at options for the phase 2. So the portion that'll carry over is the $255,000. Next up is the AC units and swamp coolers. 100% of the engineering has been completed on this project. Obviously, the life expectancy of our current air conditioning units is not expired because they're still working, but they're at a point where replacement is imminent. To date, the swamp cooler has been done at Senior Center, and we're working with the gym and also the units at City Hall. The bid preparation has been completed, and the project is going out to bid. We're hoping to award most likely mid-August. This says the 5th, but we're looking at mid-August. The citywide roofing project. To date, Riley Gym, Nellie Weaver Hall, the 3 facilities at Wayne Macon Sport Complex, Fire Station 57, and Senior Center are, I don't want to say 100% complete because there's a few small items at the Riley Gym, but at the end of this week, Senior Center will be complete. I did a job walk today for starting Station 47 on Monday. So we're progressing forward as intended. I think we might be a little bit higher than 75% complete. The remaining items other than Station 47 include the skylights at City Hall and then also the park office building at the corporate yard. Parking lot, Scout House, and Riley Gym. Obviously, these are issues that are pertaining to safety, decreasing liability for the city. Previous talks go into engineering in regards to having to incorporate bioswales due to the size of the particular lots. Engineering costs are mainly what have been expended to date, and then carrying over the 600, almost 606, 654 to be carried over to next year. And the increased cost is due to the engineering for the unforeseen portions of the bioswales and drainage. ADA assessment. This has gone out to bid. The request for proposal has been out. This is a professional service agreement, so it's not low bid. So we'll be working through this just to make sure we can evaluate the needs for the city and determine priorities for the ADA requirements and gear our infrastructure going forward to include it in our capital and measure our projects.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So my understanding was it was necessary to have the ADA assessment completed before some of these projects, especially like parking lots, because parking lots have slopes, steps, etc. But so we're well on our way on the parking lots for Riley and the Scout House as far as engineering, but we've not spent any money for the ADA assessment.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. I think it's something that we're definitely going to incorporate, and working with our staff and the company that is, I understand what you're saying, but we do need to work with the people that do this work and to cover those topics. We are aware of some things, but this is, a lot of it is also the parking structures, but the accessibility in the buildings. So we do definitely need to incorporate that into some of these things, and it's something we'll definitely take into consideration.
Okay.
Thank you. Santa River Trail Causeway. A lot of this has been postponed. We've started some engineering. Percentage complete to date, it's about 5%. We're working on some of the grant funding and looking to carry over a lot of the design portions of this connection, you know, to create the link between the river and the dike causeway over there near Silver Lakes. So we're pretty much carrying over most of that original fund. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to get into new projects that we plan to ask for funding for this coming fiscal year, in addition to the projects that we're carrying over.
Excuse me, I have a question regarding the existing projects.
Sure.
So it's been about 12 months since we've started this committee, and a lot of things have been approved. What is your assessment of how well it's gone as to, you know, within that 1 year or 9 months since some of these projects have started, to what you thought you would have done by June, end of June of 2020?
We'll affirm For me, I'm very satisfied with what we've completed. Like I said, the only project I was not able to show any meaningful other than design completion was for Valley View, and that's because I have to wait till the storm drain is done. Other than that, we have aggressively used the funds that have made available with the trails, trail rehab, trail fencing, developing the signs installation, the striping. I mean, we've pretty much knocked down everything that we've proposed to do. Like I said, my only one disappointment is not being able to do more on Valley View, but it's really just waiting for another project to go forward. So for me in Public Works, I think it's been great. I mean, we've been able to tackle things that we have not been able to do in a long, long time. So, and I think they're very visible improvements that the public can see. They're not hidden, so I think that's one of the biggest things we were focusing on is for this funding is try to pick things that people will see every day, if you can, versus other projects that are important, but they may not be viewed. And because again, folks are going to wonder, how is this money being used? What's the benefit? And I think certainly when putting as much trail fencing in is that you're seeing that every day. We're getting, and now the trails are being rehabbed. You see that every day. So those are all positive things. As far as building department and parks, I think that's something they'd have to respond to. But again, I think in general, it's a relief to finally have money there to do the work that's been on their plate and backlog for so long. It's just taking them maybe a little longer than they would want to get it off the ground. But now they're, from what I can tell based off of what they've indicated here, they're going to have a lot of activity early on in this new fiscal year. So I think it's been very, very positive, and we appreciate the support.
Okay, thank you.
So for me, I only have one project that I'm requesting at this time. We may come back in mid-year or before that with other projects as things become available. But for right now, we decided this year to be certainly more ambitious. We were very successful in getting the trail fencing done with plenty of time to spare. So this year, I'm asking for, and last year as a total budget, I spent $250,000. It was $100,000 for Measure R. This year, I'm asking to see if we can obtain $500,000 to try to do as much trail fence as we can. We have met with the Streets, Trails, Utilities Commission and reviewed a list of trails locations that we are recommending, and they have ultimately recommended that we attempt to do. It will not be I don't expect or to do all these locations, but we want to create a very broad list of locations that ultimately staff will go through and will identify, will measure out all the linear footages and figure out based off of our current pricings that we've been able to obtain, how much linear footage do we think we can actually get and how many of these different streets, and there's 2 pages of streets that we might be able to complete. So that's our next step. Assuming the funding gets approved, we will go through each of these streets and determine the actual linear footage that we estimate will be required, and then determine based off of the funding how many we truly can get done. So these are the ones we can pick from as far as staff that the Streets, Trails, Utilities Commission has approved and supported doing. There are 2 on here on this bottom portion, just so you know, that I added after that meeting that we neglected. Was one of our missions was to try to get a complete street, meaning we did the asphalt, we got it done, and let's get the trail finished so we can say that street is complete. We forgot 2 streets that we had already done the asphalt and paving a couple years ago, and I wanted to get those done. One was Corona Avenue from 4th Street to 5th Street. That's been paved and added that to the list. And then Temescal Avenue, 4th Street to 5th Street, that got repaved when I redid my water line. So we'd forgotten about those, and I added them to that list after the fact, and I'm going to let our commission know. But those are 2 that I would like to have on the list as available. But so we have got quite a few locations that we're attempting to do to spend that $500,000, assuming it is approved by this commission at the next meeting. And these are the locations that we're looking to do. With that, any questions you may have?
With the fencing that's been put in over the last several months, has the cost per linear foot been about what you estimated before the project started?
I guess the we know what it is when we award it. So it's been pretty close. We're conservative on our estimate, so commonly it's been about $14 to $15 per linear foot, and I think we usually estimate about 16 to be conservative when we do our budgeting. So I think it's been pretty good. And luckily, we've gotten some pretty good competition. We actually, fortunately, this last, the two contracts I did this year, one was from Red Hawk, who won that bid. It was a very competitive bid, and they were a very good contractor. And then we have Valley City Fence, who got the 6th Street project, which is our local contractor, a good contractor. And in both of those, they were very competitive, so which is great for us. So, and knowing that we're going to be doing more projects, and they're both aware of it, as far as local vendors plus the others, they're going to come in very aggressive again, because they've been literally neck and neck. I think this one I awarded to Valley City's Fence, that they won the bid by like $3,000. So they are both, I'm sorry, it was $25,000. So it's still very close. So I think we're getting good bids.
Is there a local preference for bidding in Norco?
Not for construction, but there is a preference as far as for purchasing of materials.
Okay.
So we do have that where you can get, we can consider 5%, basically a bump if there's a difference, if somebody's second or whatnot, that might bump them up. But it's only for materials, not for a public works contract.
Okay. Now, have you seen a lot of damage and I see this all the time on social media where they post these stupid fences got hit by a car, and so is there been a lot of maintenance and a lot of damage in the new fencing?
I don't know if I'd say it's a lot. Damage happens. We are prepared. That's part of our O&M budget, and we will repair fences. In some cases, we get lucky, and there's an accident report with a responsible driver that their insurance ends up covering those costs, and others, it's a hit and run, and we don't get anything for it, but we still fix it. So it is part of the responsibility of maintaining a trail system that we have to be able to replace it. And the goal is, which has been different than our history, in that when a wood fence gets knocked down, we don't put it back, because we know the new standard is white vinyl. So when the white vinyl gets knocked down, we put it back. So that's a positive thing that we're doing, is regardless of the reason and whether we're getting paid, we're going to go put that fence back.
So are you going to have a budget item for that in the Measure R funding, or does that come out of the
No, it's just
city?
part of our trail fund.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as our O&M. It's because, again, the amount that we pay for that kind of damage isn't significant.
All right, our first new proposed project is the parking lots for animal control, Parmenter Park, and Wayne Macon Sports Complex. By grouping these three areas together, it allows us to get a little better pricing in regards to the work. All three are in different stages of aging, if you will. Some examples include animal control has some trees around it, but it's cracking, and we do have some issues with drainage. So it's something we're going to need to consider when we do the engineering, along with the ADA issues in regards to ADA accessibility for parking and pedestrian traffic. Parmenter Park, it's got big cracks, and we're looking to get this. It's the same thing for all three. They're really aged. They're a liability, and they're also a safety issue for tripping, and are in need of definite repair.
Are these good numbers? Because when we started, we got the parking lot for Riley Gym, and it was what, $250,000? Now it's $750,000. So are these going to require bioswales and additional things? Are these good numbers, do you believe?
So with that learning curve that we did get from the Scout House and Riley Gym, we have taken into consideration those items. The good thing with the animal control is we do have some existing. A bioswale is basically it's natural, and you use the earth to filter. and we have some that are adjacent to the parking lot area. So we're able to use some existing, we don't have to reinvent a new bioswale like we did at Riley Gym. So a lot of those concepts and things are incorporated in the design of this portion of the project. But yes, ideally, numbers are a lot more accurate.
Are we able to group some of the parking lot repairs together so that you can get a better bid just due to the size of the project? Most contractors like bigger projects.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's something we'll definitely take into consideration. I need to work with our group. I'm still learning kind of the bits and pieces, and I don't want a cop-out, but it's definitely a possibility. Depending, I know we're a little further along in some of the other projects than we are with some of these newer ones, but it's definitely something we'll take into consideration. Michelle is going to speak on this one.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. The next proposed project is Riley Gymnasium. The facility was renovated 20 years ago and has met its life expectancy without further improvements. It is one of the most highly used facilities, according to the last year's annual visitors report, had approximately 84,000 visitors. The proposed renovations will continue the life expectancy of the facility as well as increase the aesthetics, which will entice future rentals and programming opportunities for youth, adults, and seniors. It has been determined that architectural services are needed to assemble the analysis for the ceiling insulation, as the roof cannot support the weight of the spray-on insulation that will be replaced on the walls. Other improvements that we've included are interior and exterior paint, upstairs flooring, restroom upgrades, safety padding, as well as the installation of the security system and an ADA front door. Finally, a new exterior sign is badly needed. I've included pictures for your reference. As you can see in the first picture is a beautiful new sports court that was funded by the Park Development Fund, and it has just been installed and the contract is complete. The facility now has 3 basketball courts, 2 volleyball courts, and 4 brand new pickleball courts. It's important to understand with these requests for the improvements of Riley Gym for the next fiscal year that we consider to do them in conjunction together with the installation to minimize the facility closures. And we're asking for a little over $464,000 for the project. Any questions?
I have a question for you. On here you have $198,000 for insulation, and we sent it back for more research. Are you going to come back and tell us what you found out about insulation?
Well, we need to hire an architectural firm to help us determine what the exact needs are, because we're looking at a batting system most definitely for the ceiling, but the sides would be a polyurethane, probably product spray-on. And currently we have, it's a paper spray-on that they don't even make anymore.
Can you explain the statement that the ceiling insulation as a roof system cannot support the weight of the spray-on insulation that would be on the walls?
The spray insulation, the polyurethane, the weight of that goes onto the facility, the way that this building is structurally sound, that weight to cover the entire ceiling surface, the roof will not support it. So we would have to completely restructure the roof, the ceiling. And we just did the roof project on that.
Okay.
So the other opportunity would be a batting system,
Yeah.
which is lightweight.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Thank you.
Actually, I do. So, I mean, we talked at length for multiple meetings about insulation and about Riley Gym. So sorry, like just revisiting, kind of trying to remember all of those conversations. And I feel like they said this was going to be a significantly larger number. So is 198 actually the cost of the insulation, or is that the cost of figuring it out?
That is what we are anticipating, the cost of the installation.
Okay, and so, because one of the things about doing the roof that I know I specifically asked was, did we have to figure out the insulation before we did the roof? and making sure that we actually like did things in the right order so that we didn't end up backing ourselves in the corner. Did we know that going into this, and now we're making this decision because batting is the right thing? Or like I just want to make sure that our resources, we didn't end up in the wrong place from kind of all the conversations we had before, just so that we can learn from this. Or if we are, this is what we thought was going to happen and this is just the next phase of it. I'm just a little concerned because we talked a lot about Riley Gym.
I understand. And what we are looking at right now is the architectural analysis will develop that correct batting system for the ceiling. So I think we're in the right direction. And with the spray on the sidings is we are comfortable with that.
So it's spray on the side and batting on the ceiling?
Correct. What we're planning on doing, if you look at, let me see what picture it is. If you look at the second photo, you'll see the back wall where the American flag is. All around the facility, that area is all spray insulation as well as the ceiling. What we're looking to do is scrape everything off and then re-insulate the walls with the spray-on insulation and then put the batting on the ceiling and then paint the columns. So the columns that you see that have spray insulation all over them, we want those all completely cleaned up and painted so the facility looks pristine.
And the batting system, it's going to be like rollout that's up there. How are you going to attach it to the roof?
I'm going to refer to the architect to give us that professional recommendation. There's different types. There's board batting, there's the roll batting. So there's options that I'm sure they're going to give us, and the best option.
And then are those options going to be brought back here, or are we just saying 198, do it the right way?
I'm sure the project would go out to bid and then go to council for approval. I don't know if we would bring back the actual project.
Because we talked so much about this in so many different directions.
You're absolutely correct. At the last session last year, the reason we didn't move forward with this project was the need to do some additional research. Based on what I've been told by Brian, they have already done that research and believe that this is the right way to go before making this proposal to the COC.
Okay.
Well, that's the research. We need the architect to tell us what that batting system at the top needs to be.
So I guess what everyone's asking is, when you have that information, can you bring it back to our meeting and just explain it to us?
Certainly.
What the
I'm
architect,
sure,
yeah.
I'm sure we can do that.
Isn't that what you're looking for? Okay, thank you.
As far as contract award, that doesn't come back to the COC.
No.
But we certainly can bring that.
Which direction?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
So I have another question. You mentioned the beams.
Yes.
Pointed out in picture number 2. So it looks like those were sprayed with the original paper material 25 years ago for aesthetics, or maybe it was just easier to just spray the whole inside. So you're going to scrape those. Is there a fire rating concern on those beams or the ceiling beams? Do they have to be coated with some sort of fireproof?
That will, the architect will tell us that, but I do not believe so. So the beams, we believe that the way that they sprayed it was because it was easier. But if you go to, let's see, if you go to the third page, that's a picture of the ceiling with the spray installation. So anything up high is falling down, and we do not want that to happen even on the beams. It's falling right on the court.
Great. No, I understand that. But I just want to make sure that there's not some hidden cost that the beams need to be, ceiling beams and wall beams need to be
Fire
covered with some sort of fire rating.
I can call an architect tomorrow. Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, moving along. Pool demolition. Everyone's aware of the pool that's behind community center. It's a gigantic, I like our wording, attractive nuisance, but it is just that. It's been empty for quite some time. Just when it's not full of water and it's not being used what it's made for, it degrades even faster. We have a huge problem with skateboarders and homeless and basically people going in there and hanging out. So it's a safety issue, it's a liability issue, and it's also a lot of extra work on the maintenance staff because they continually cut holes. So we try to keep it blocked off for safety, but they keep cutting, so we have to keep repairing. In the winter when it rains, and we got quite a bit this year, we had to extract a lot of water. So it's a continual issue, a cost, and it's not being used. So we're asking for $200,000 to basically remove. Trying to think what I'm missing on this, Pat. That's essentially it. It's an issue that we need to look at getting rid of. We had a sinkhole, it's just another safety issue in that general area of that portion of the facility. So we're looking to take it out and make it safe for everyone.
Has there been any sort of assessment about like repurposing? I haven't been there, so excuse me for that.
No.
I don't know if it's an indoor or an outdoor pool.
Okay, so it's an outdoor pool. It's actually adjacent to it's the back side of the building of the community center. There's a portion of grass, and then there's also a playground. And then there's a fenced-off pool with a little bit of decking, and there's also, I guess you would call it a pool house that's been boarded up. And it's essentially like a shower room with some lockers, what you'd expect with an older style pool.
That's why the skateboarders.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a good sized pool. I wouldn't call it Olympic, but it's a good sized pool. So it's got a nice deep end, so the skateboarders enjoy that portion of it. And then the building itself is brick, the actual the bathhouse, if you will. Yes, sir. That's the intention, yes. And then our understanding and our thought process is to have that go away as well. It just right now it's boarded up. We do keep it secure so nothing can happen inside. But it's a brick building, so it's deteriorated. If anything's deteriorating, it's the roof portion of the bathhouse. The brick itself will last a long time. But we've looked at other options if we could use it for storage or other things that we could do to purpose it. And it's kind of hard to get to. We don't have a set road or something, so it just makes it real tough. And okay, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. So it's. And then that'll open up some space for future projects or maybe some other endeavors that we would look into and just repurpose that area.
Has the city considered putting a skateboard park in there?
That issue has been raised in the past, but it's not an issue that is on the walk and drawing at this point.
Okay. That is insurance. All right. 4-H barn or the event center pole barn. This has been discussed before, but we'd like to move forward as quickly as possible. The $1 million dollar figure. It's a big number, but it's one that we've looked at and worked with our focus groups and also our RKA, our engineering firm. That cost incorporates everything. It's not just the actual structure itself, but it includes the removal of the existing structure, connections for sewer and water, which currently aren't in existence. We feel that we can do this project for that dollar figure and have everything current in regards to ADA and the drainage that will be needed with a larger structure.
I feel like this is a great project, but a really big project with a lot of pieces. And to just say, yes, go spend $1 million with a couple of sentences doesn't feel like possibly enough information to make a true informed decision long term. I'd be more comfortable saying that we're going to like approve the concept and then potentially have different points, milestones where we approve the next phase of the project, or possibly get the opportunity to see if there's like a design component or something else to it, because it's just a lot of money without even a drawing or a picture or a concept or anything. So is it possible, Andy, that maybe we could figure out, some ways of saying, yes, we want to move forward, because I feel like it's a great thing to move forward, but I'm not 100% comfortable just saying, here's $1 million, go and spend it without some additional components with it.
Yeah, we can do that. Even at the next COC meeting, when the budget is scheduled to be approved, I'd like to have Brian bring you additional information on this. There's a lot of information that has been gathered in the process of coming up with this $1 million number. We certainly can provide you that additional detail. In addition, approving the project in concept is a good one. I think we all recognize this is an important project that needs to be done. With respect to how much money is to be spent in each one of those phases, we can also bring that back to the COC. But again, recognizing we're going to put this $1 million as sort of a budget for it. We don't have to spend it, all of it, and as that is the same for every project you looked at tonight. And these are just the numbers that we have today, and they may be under or over, but given the size of the project, we can bring it to you for review on a phase-by-phase basis as well.
I appreciate that. I think, we've obviously approved numbers this large before, mainly just in like street repair. And on the street repair side of it, it's street repair. We're not looking at different components or different features and different items to it. And I feel like potentially we should know a little bit more. Although I am sure that Brian has put a lot of research into it. All of his items normally come forward with a lot of information. So certainly next month it may be enough that I won't want to continually ask for that, but or it might be something if my other committee members are in agreement that we need more information.
I almost feel like this is just a placeholder, just until we get more information, because they're just putting the project together. Brian did at the last meeting give us quite a bit of information, so we'll just ask him to come back and give that information again. Because, he did a lot of research, so.
Yeah, and it is an aging facility. I know I kind of recapped the last one, and the degradation of the existing 4-H barn, it's a wooden structure. It's lived its life. And
I'm good
but I
on
understand.
all of that.
I agree.
I
100%.
think it's just, it's a lot with a lot of different features associated with it. And I think it's also one of those things that the public, because it's such a public facility that everybody uses, and then it also has a potential for revenue generation and other impact for the city and other things, that understanding the features and getting that, into it, I don't want to be in the weeds because that's obviously not our place, but just a little bit more information would be great.
Understood. Thank you. Nellie Weaver Hall. What we've tried to accomplish is put together somewhat of a master plan. I know in past we've talked about doing installation at the gym and then installation at Nellie Weaver, but we tried to kind of split it up and concentrate. Each facility has a different concept or an ability, if you will, for its purpose. So we've broken them down, and a lot of this has been recapped, but the installation in the ceiling is similar to what we're doing at the gym. That cost that we had initially was kind of split up and broken into both of these different improvement plans. The painting numbers are still the same, the interior and the exterior. The stage door was discussed in pretty good length last time, and that's still stays the same as what we had previously. The electrical pedestals is also, I think that's new from what we had last time. And what those are the, I don't know if you're familiar, out front they have, I look at it like RV parking. When you go park your RV and you have a electrical connection, well, that's something very similar. But obviously, it's used for fair, different types of events and features. But it's a power supply, is basically what it is. And it's old, as it we state through here. It's I think we have an exact number, but it's old, and so is the wiring, and everything with it is old. A lot of it may not be up to code as much as it should be. So we're looking to upgrade that and fix it. Included in the pedestals, since they are in the parking lot, we're looking at not necessarily replacing pedestals, but changing the design so where we have electrical out there, but we run spider boxes, which is kind of what we've done up in Ingalls on like the east pad. So it's something it's movable. And that also allows us to have a larger parking lot, which is kind of the intention. And even though they're bright yellow, they're still hit, I won't say daily, but pretty close. So we got a lot of crooked ones, and when those do get damaged, there isn't, it's live electricity. Well, it's off, but it's electrical issue, and it's a concern and a liability. The parking lot and the drainage, I know we went into great detail with the drainage last time. That's the east side where we have the spring and the water, and we actually met out there a week or so ago, maybe two. But we're looking at the engineering aspects of it to carry the water off into our waterways, if you will. So that's a portion of the drainage, and then the parking lot. The newer number of this is the parking lot portion, and the pedestal. So we had the drainage in there last time. The pedestals and the parking lot are the newer portion that we've added to this, to just increase the ability to be able to park more vehicles if necessary and allow different functions and events. And this just goes through. It's kind of what I talked about. I apologize. I didn't forward the slide.
So will this basically just improve the whole facility, or is there something else past this that you'd be recommending? I'm very happy that we've gotten to this point. Obviously, we had to take care of some very real and very important structural items in all of our facilities first. And so this is one of those items that I'd been asking about in the beginning, if we could, when we would get there. And so I'm really happy we're there now. I'm just wondering if this is now it, or if there's anything else with this facility, because it would be nice to finish one facility if we could. Absolutely. And then before we move on to the next one, if it's just small things, like I'm not sure if the kitchen needs any upgrades, if it has all of the fire rating and everything else. There's been a bunch of new commercial kitchen regulations and rules as far as venting and ducting. If there are other things that associated with it to bring this facility at the level that we need so that we can ensure forward renovation, reservation wise and everything else. So is there anything else that you would be recommending at this facility to do as well?
Our goal and our thought process with this was to try and make it a master plan. It's it's tough to get in there and piecemeal work. If we're trying to look at it as a one-time deal, we have the new air conditioning units. We've made a lot of upgrades. We've had to stay current on a lot of the kitchen stuff just because it's a requirement when you have so that's an annual upkeep. So our goal is to be this is done, similar to our roofing project. Have the same thing all in one big plan. So yes, that's our goal, to complete it and
so
call it
this
good.
does that.
Yes, that's our intentions, yes, definitely. And it doesn't state it out here perfectly, but part of the parking lot, because obviously ADA is a big component to that, and the existing parking lot that we do have, there's some spots where it's blacktop, and there's other spots where it's like asphalt grinding, to keep, weed abatement and stuff, so that's not very ADA friendly, so we're looking at all those different potential risks so we can incorporate that and be done and extend the life of the asset, as Brian's good at teaching me. Yes, ma'am. Oh, okay, yeah, thank you. Included in, we talked about this, but it's not written on here. We have and this has been discussed, is the old lighting. The actual cylinders, we're having a hard time getting the components to the ballast. So that's something that and the engineering costs, we're trying to wrap up into all this, but it's roughly 15% ballpark of the cost is what we've kind of calculated. So the lighting is another portion of that master plan. And I apologize, I didn't bring it up.
No,
but
it's important.
We have, because it's outdated lighting. And we have to stay up with because it's dimmable lights, so we want to carry that on, but we need to be able to replace. And right now it's really hard to get the ballast since the fixtures are so old.
Yeah, and I completely understand that there, are going to be issues, money-wise, and we want to make sure that we're being as cost-conscious as possible. But if we're going to spend $539,000, if adding another 20 or 30 or 50,000, just does it, and we save more money because we put it all together, that's why I was just asking.
Gotcha.
Because to me, Nellie Weaver is an incredibly important asset that the city has, and we have so many events there that bring the public, and I have been very, I guess is the right word, that we clean up 6th Street and then up to Ingalls, because there are so many events and people come off, they go up there, and then we're drawing people in from outside of the city. And so these are just things that are bringing in additional revenue. And so, if we could just, we're taking care of that. So I appreciate that you've looked at all of that. Thank you.
Moreno Arena sound system. $130,000. This is almost a 20-year-old system. I know we talked about this. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but the main thing is it's degraded and it's old technology. And with sound comes obviously music and announcement for different events and stuff. But a big portion of that is public safety, being able to inform people. Clark Arena is a little bit newer, so we're just trying to keep up with times and keep it a viable option and make it, effective for people and what they need to use the sound for. Last but not least is the ball field sports light replacement at the community center fields and Clark Field. 3 poles need to come out, 3 poles need to go up, and we've discussed the new light fixtures. We were going to go from the old metal halide to new LED. Saves money, it's more efficient. You actually have better light quality, and then the cost is relatively similar in regards to LED and trying to find old metal halide. The systems operate a little bit differently, and LED is the future for lighting, and trying to make it safe and have our youth sports available, be able to play at night. And we'll move forward with that right away. I'm sitting on that, so once we get through the end of this COVID and stage 3, 4 stuff, we can have kids playing on lit fields at night. Last page is just...
I have a question.
Oh, yes, sir.
So on the lighting, the
Yes.
idea is to replace all the lighting with new LED?
Oh, I think, if we had unlimited funds, I think that would be awesome. But right now, it's just to replace the fixtures on the poles that we're replacing. Correct. Okay. So we will, the technology with LED, and I know this was discussed a little bit, I don't want to carry on too long. Oh, sorry. Wayne Makins, we have lots and lots of poles. So the design is dated. At some point, we would love to, but what will happen is, for example, and I don't have an exact number, but say we have 50 poles, and just for reference, new LED lighting, you're doing a lot less poles. So, you don't have right now we have a pole every 50 feet or 60 yards or whatever it is. The new technology, you can have more poles and they can direct the light a lot more effectively. So we'll have brighter portions of the field. So, for example, the community center baseball field, the left field, and then we have behind the third base dugout are going to be the new poles. We're doing the same number of fixtures. We're going to have an awesome light and with the new LED fixtures. So in the master plan scheme, and when we do come to that point where we can afford to do all LED lighting, absolutely. But at this current juncture, we're just trying to get the field safe for kids to be able to play.
And is there, because we're piecemealing it, is there an additional cost that we're assuming, which is okay? I just think we should be upfront about it, that, that we're incurring additional costs by doing it or not, or not.
When you say incurring a cost, you mean like?
Well, because we're only doing a couple, and so if we did the whole thing, would there be a savings because we would do something different and we would actually, so if we continue to do it the way we're doing it over time, did we end up spending 30 or 40% more because we bought more because we're keeping the same number of poles? Or I think I heard you say that if we just redesigned it, we would do a different amount of poles potentially and a different amount of lights. So
yeah, for like Wayne Makins, that was my example.
Okay,
Because
but in this one,
ideally, I mean, if we had unlimited funds, and I know this was discussed last time, having steel poles. Steel pole is going to last a lot longer than wooden pole due to the just nature of wood. But the cost and the installation, it's almost 3 times the cost. So I think when we can get to that point, and that facility's due for when we deem it's something that's necessary, I think you're right. I think we will incur a little bit more cost initially trying to piecemeal. I don't think that's our intention. Our main intention was, let's keep it safe, let's get it open. I mean, to have it available.
how long do you think that the $90,000 will kind of put the Band-Aid on before we go and do the next point? Because replacing all of them may not be a priority, and it clearly doesn't seem to be that you're saying it is. But how long do you think that this Band-Aid will hold us off before the next round? And yeah, if you don't have an idea.
No, I understand what you're saying. We had everything tested earlier, at the end of last year, early this year. It was right before I started. But I got all the results from those reports, and then what the reports showed us is basically a projection, if you will, on the life what's left of the life expectancy of the poles. So everything is good right now, and we're monitoring them, on a monthly basis. But I'm trying to answer your question, but we don't have plans to go and say, hey, next year I need another $90,000 because we have 3 more poles. So we've gotten rid of the priority reject, so it's safe. So I don't think this is going to be an ongoing. It's going to be when we get to a point, let's do the whole thing, if that makes sense.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure.
Didn't Brian tell us last month that these were poles that need to be replaced? They're going to fall down, so they were emergency kind of things, because 2 of them are in the baseball field where there may be a project, a hotel, and that's way in the future. But that this was he recommended it for safety purposes.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I just was concerned that if the intention is to every 6 months to a year replace 2 or 3 poles, so that over a span of a period of time we're going to have replaced the whole thing, when it would have been better to just start now and redesign. If this is the Band-Aid, which will keep us in good for a while longer to put that project where the priority of that project should be, then great. But if that wasn't the intention, and it sounds like that isn't, so we're good moving forward.
So the project, as you've listed here, is replace 3 poles
Yes, sir.
with LED lights?
Yes, so 3 new poles, and then each of those 3 poles will get replaced. The one that fell, the lights were destroyed, so we have new fixtures going into those. But we thought, since we're removing a bad pole with the original lighting, it makes sense to not put up new technology. So it's 3 poles, 3 banks of fixtures. So one pole has 2 lights, the other 2 have 4.
Okay.
So it's a total of 10 fixtures.
So it's roughly $32,000 per pole.
Yeah, well, the one at Clark Field on Detroit, and it's a 75-foot pole, as opposed to the poles at Community Center, which are 65. And the taller they are, there's different classes for poles. So we're going with a class 2, which is better than a higher grade. It stays thicker longer.
Okay.
So it's just to make sure we're okay with the winds and the elements here, that we're safe.
I think last meeting I asked Brian how many poles, and I think he came back with 29 or 30.
Oh, and I did see that, and I think that might be for the entirety. This particular portion is the removal and then the installation of 3
right, but,
poles in
but
3 sets.
30 poles total between Community Park and Clark Field. I
Yeah,
think.
for like everything?
Okay. So if every year we do 3, and there's 30, that's 10 years.
Yeah, no, that adds up, and that
$100,000. Okay.
adds up. Yeah, exactly.
It's going to add up. Okay.
Absolutely. And our last slide here is just our totals. Recap: parking lots, 280. I don't need to read them all. 286, $1 million. Riley Gym, pool demolition, Nellie Weaver Hall improvements, Moreno Arena sound, and the ball field lighting, 2.7. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to receive and file?
Madam Chair,
Yes?
if I could make a couple of comments before you
What?
make that recommendation. So as you have had, we've had 2 discussions. There are some new items here and here that you didn't see that last time. But when we come back to you to your next meeting, this park facility project is $2.7 million. I think Chad's project is a total of $550,000. Trail maintenance for $50,000 and trail replacement for $500,000. So all of these projects added together will be what we'll be bringing back to you to approve at your next meeting. Again, you've seen some of these things twice. If you have any questions, I encourage you to, between now and when we bring it back to you, reach out to Chad, reach out to Todd or to Brian, get some more information. But this is essentially what we're going to bring back to you at your July meeting for approval.
Okay, now can I have a motion to receive and file?
Seconded.
Oh. Sorry. We have public comments next.
We have no public comments received. Member Yates? Member Warehane? Member Sandifer? Member Geik? Vice Chair Shull? Chair Olmsted Bowen? Motion passes unanimous.
So item number 3 is public comments. This is the time when persons in the audience wishing to address the Measure R Citizens Oversight Committee regarding matters not on the agenda may speak. Please complete the speaker card in the back of the room and present it to the city clerk so that you may be recognized. The Ralph M. Brown Act limits the committee's ability to respond to comments on non-agendized matters at the time such comments are made. The committee shall not discuss or take action relative to any general public comment. I do have a question. Can I make a comment as a citizen?
You would have to leave the dais, fill out a card, and then you would speak at the,
Okay. Is this on? Okay. I just wanted to make a comment that I personally support the city council and Ted Hoffman in all the stuff that's happening today that was at the council meeting last week. And I also want to thank staff for all the extra hard work this has caused them. And I just wanted to, our committee is here to support the city council, our elected officials, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands that I personally support our council. Thank you.
And we've received no other public speaker cards.
Thank you. And so next, items for future Measure R Citizens Oversight Committee agendas. And so we do already have items on. We're coming back with these. Do we have any other suggestions? Okay, so we're adjourned.